What if I told you that most GMAT students are reviewing their mistakes completely wrong? Today, I'm going to show you the exact error log method that's going to help Rahul break through his hard cementing barrier. We're analyzing just 4 questions from his recent quiz, but you'll see how this systematic approach creates a clear roadmap from being stuck to moving forward. Now, here's the key insight that separates students who break through barriers from those who stay stuck. There are actually 2 completely different types of learning gaps, and most students mix them up. Watch how we systematically separate these.
So this is the level of detail that Rahul has done in his error log here for one advanced topics, one hard advanced topic, hard cementing, right? So you see over here in terms of reasoning and learnings, and this is the level of detail which I want everyone to put in on a question level. Learnings are always in 2 categories. One are behavioral changes that need to be done. 2 are knowledge gaps or concept gaps, right? Knowledge gaps and concept gaps are much easier to bridge, okay? Behavioral changes are more difficult to fix, okay? When I say more difficult, it doesn't mean it's not possible to fix. Definitely it is possible, but it requires a lot of rewiring to happen, okay? So and that realization is very important at every quiz level, okay? What are the behavioral changes that I'm going to be making, okay? Case of Rahul, he's done a really good job with the course. He's passed medium cementing. Hard cementing is where he's stuck, and that is what our goal is. What are the changes that he needs to make, both from behavioral as well as knowledge gap standpoints, so that he can pass hard cementing? And once he has this recipe for one course in quant, he will be able to apply that across the board for other courses as well. So now look at this over here. After he reviews the question, after he attempts the quiz, he has gone and looked at each and every question, took a bit of time in comprehending the question, probably read some portions again, right? So he's recollecting how he actually attempted that question, and then took some time in formulating the expression for non-event case along with the arrangement. So you can see that he's gone into the details of that. Now, what are his learnings? He's not leaving with that. He's talking about need to read in chunks and make a note of information and draw inferences along the way. This is a very insightful feedback that he has given to himself, right? And now if he sees similar stuff later on in the other questions also, he now knows that, okay, this is one big behavior change that absolutely needs to happen, okay? Let's look at the next one. Was able to approach and first go in reasonable time. So good, thumbs up. Issue in reading the information, question number 3. Again, similar stuff. Read the question carefully. Probably got a little excited that I had attempted similar type of question before, and that led me to rush again. That familiarity trap is a very real thing, okay? When we feel that, okay, and familiarity trap is very real, especially in quant, because in quant, we've already developed those neural connections. And so we feel that, okay, this is something that we already know. Let me just do that, right? And because of that, we end up making mistakes. Why? Because we have not read and understood the entire question. We have not extracted everything from it, right? So here, so learning from question number 3 is different from learning from question number 1. In question number 1, he has to read it in chunks and he needs to infer as he goes along. From question number 3, the learning that he's having is that you have to pull yourself back from falling into that familiarity trap, okay? And that's a very, very important learning, right? But do you guys see the way we are able to draw those behavioral insights and behavioral changes that are required from the input? And that input also needs to come from you guys. That input has to be that question level analysis that you need to do. Because once you understand this recipe of doing strategic review, and I want to make sure that you guys are able to apply that as you do strategic review of each quiz, because that is the gold mine that will get you to the next treasure, which is again your ability enhancement. Now look at the next one here. Need to analyze, remove only one possibility for non-event, any scenario wherein one is not senior developer also fails this. Need to analyze the question and plan when non-event method is more appropriate to solve than the direct method. Now, this one is probably a knowledge gap and not really a behavioral change. Okay, because here it's really about what approach to use. Okay, now knowledge gap doesn't necessarily mean a concept. Knowledge gap could also mean that, okay, how I don't know how to simplify this expression, or I don't know the definite so the definition of a, again in very simplistic terms, definition of a positive integer is a concept gap, right? But not knowing when to apply non-event versus when to apply an event method, this is more of a skill gap, which is in the context of this specific kind of question. So it's not a behavioral thing, it's more of a skill gap thing with regards to non-event versus event. And for such questions, I would recommend going back to the module where non-event versus event has been discussed, so that you now are looking at that module not from the standpoint of understanding event versus non-event, but you're looking at that module from the standpoint of identifying when which method is better. So again, when we say go back to the module, you always have to understand the intent behind which you're going back to the module. You may be revisiting the same questions, right? But now you're looking at those questions not to learn that there is this method called as non-event, but now what you'll do is solve every question using both methods, non-event as well as event. And that's when you will develop that that understanding of, oh, in this scenario, non-event is better, in this scenario event is better.
Now we're getting to the systematic part. How do you take all these individual question insights and turn them into an actual action plan? This is the recipe that works across any topic.
So overall, I feel that there are these different patterns that I'm seeing over here. Information chunking is very important. So from really this is where I would say the bulk of your stuff is going to come about. Implementing systematic reading with keyword highlighting and information chunking, that is something important. So the first two questions that we saw, they have been clubbed together over here. Skip decision framework, that is also very important for you. Okay, from test taking perspective. And then always check for pending cases or scenario. This is something which is a knowledge gap kind of thing. So I would say these are 3 high-level things that you need to fix before you move on to your next quiz. So frankly, these are 2 behavioral changes. Okay, reading the right way, and how is it that you're going to make sure that you don't fall into the familiarity trap and that you chunk. That's the decision that you have to make, and you have to set certain things for yourself. And then skipping, when is it that you're going to skip? 1.5 minute mark or 2 minute mark? It's completely up to you. Okay. And then this is the verification discipline. This is more about, just doing those knowledge gaps. Okay. So that's what you have to do. In my opinion, if you do 1 and 2, you should be able to pass the threshold for the next quiz.
This level of detailed analysis is what separates students who plateau from those who keep improving. The students who implement this systematic approach see consistent score progression instead of staying stuck at the same level. Most students stop at identifying what went wrong, but the real work starts after that systematic analysis. And if this systematic method helped you understand how to review your mistakes properly, hit that like button. It tells me you want more strategic study content like this that goes beyond surface level tips.